South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Good morning and happy Monday, sports fans and sports bettors. Thanks so much for finding us on YouTube. This is Sports by the Book. 7 days a week, you can find us here, and you never know who you're going to find at the desk. I'm excited about this show. I'm Alex White, hosting today, and alongside our very good friend, Vinny Magliulo, Vinny by the Book. He will be here for the full hour with me, and we also have a very special guest to break down college hoops, and that is our good friend, Paul Stone, professional sports bettor. So we'll have him in about 15 minutes. Until then, Vinny and I will break down some of the games today. Also do a deep dive into college basketball as we get closer to March Madness. And then at the end of the show, we will hit on some NBA and NHL. Vinny, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me for the full hour.
Hi, Alex. I'll try not to screw things up today, all right? I just hope I pass the audition. Please put a good word in for me with Ann and the rest of the staff.
Vinny, of course, has been carrying this team and been a part of South Point Studio and Sports by the Book since the very beginning. So we know that he has already passed the audition many times. We even have a very special clip of him that maybe we'll see later if we do have some two-way action. Maybe Paul and I will be on different sides. You have to stick around to find out. Vinny, a lot happening over the weekend. Of course, the Saturdays have been so much fun with college hoops. And ironically, you, Jeff, and Chris Andrews, we're talking about some of the big games on Friday. Free Throw Friday. You guys can find that on YouTube as well, once a week. And you were talking about maybe some letdown spots. And it was Missouri, who had a very desperate team in Arkansas, and they did get the outright win. Yeah,
you know what, Alex? Again, great to be here with you today. And one of the points that Chris, Jeff, and I made on Friday was that here we are in the stretch drive now, the last month, right? Critical games coming up. There are teams that certainly are destined for the tournament, but they want to stay sharp and not, the coaching situation there is let's keep, hopefully everybody stays healthy and keep our focus, right? Not take anything for granted. But then you've got teams that are trying to really make their case with the committee. And I thought Arkansas was one of them on Friday, and just as an example, right? So, and in college, the emotion is extremely important, right? In all sports, but more so, I think, in college, it comes into play, especially when teams are in desperation mode. And clearly, Arkansas is in desperation mode, and what I said was that desperate teams are dangerous teams. So here you had a very good Missouri team, no question about it. I mean, look at this SEC, the greatest conference. And we'll talk about the prop that we put up and what led us to do that with the SEC paired against everyone else in terms of winning the NCAA tournament. But Texas A&M, a solid team, right? And Missouri goes in and they beat them, right? So, and handle it. And Missouri's playing very well. Well, you've got Arkansas, who had an absolutely abysmal start to their conference season. I think they lost their first 5 or 6 games, and now they've started to right things. They did have some injuries as well going into it, but they knew that they were home, and I just thought it was a spot where Arkansas, in desperation mode, was going to get some professional play, and as it turned out, it did, and they got the victory. Certainly, listen, it's not a "and I told you so" situation. It's just you've got to read these types of situations into your handicapping, at least particularly when it comes to covering. This was a close game too. It was basically a pick'em game when you look at when we saw the number, right? So all those things said, pay attention to them. I mean, on Friday night we had the game, the first meeting of the year between Michigan and Michigan State, right? Which to me is late in the season. I mean, it's almost like some of these conference schedules look like the NFL with their schedule when the Pittsburgh Steelers played their division like in the last quarter of the season. So timing and spots, the matchups with that timing, I think, come into play. Pay attention to them with all the other elements of your handicapping, your power ratings, injuries, and things like that.
Especially now that we're getting down to the end here of regular season, teams are trying to position themselves in the best seeding that they can going into the conference tournament, especially if they don't have a bid for the big dance, right? Then they need to win their conference. And you're right, desperate team is a dangerous team. We've seen it in the Big Ten and the ACC. Now that for the first time ever, 3 teams are not going to make the conference tournament because there's so many teams in the conferences now. Those teams have been winning games outright, playing desperate. Penn State comes to mind. And so really there's some opportunity to find some good spots for the sports bettors and really capitalize on it down here at the stretch.
No question, Alex. And we've had to adjust too on our side of the counter. You bring up an excellent point. When you look at the size of these conferences now and how these conference tournaments are going to play out. Again, we'll go back to the SEC. 16 teams in the conference. I think there's 18 teams right in the Big Ten. So you've got these super conferences now, and there are no guarantees, and that's why head-to-head matchups now, down the stretch, are so important. And then you had a bit of an anomaly also, and a statement made. Look at Duke. Duke played Illinois the other day. Now, this is something that Duke has done over the years, right? Where late in the season, this was typically a matchup that we saw years ago, like in the 90s and early 2000s, where it was the ACC Big Ten Challenge, right? Or, different conference challenge. But here it is late in the year. Well, that's a measuring stick for where you are to go into the big dance, if you will. A game on a neutral court in New York City at Madison Square Garden. It was usually a game that Duke played St. John's, which, by the way, don't be shocked if that matchup comes later in the NCAA tournament, and both of those teams wind up in the Eastern region. Right now, I think that's a likely scenario to where they'll both be in the East. And then play themselves into that matchup. But that's another thing you want to look at and say, wow, okay, now how do these teams match up, and how do they look going into the stretch run? And I thought Duke made a huge statement the other day with that victory over Illinois.
110-67 is the victory that Vinny is talking about. And Illinois is kind of spiraling, though. They had an illness going through their locker room, and it's kind of been a little bit of a mess for them. We'll see how they turn it around. Another upset, St. Mary's completes the sweep over Gonzaga. So that's something to remember and consider going into that tournament. And Ryan told us right before show, the 3 times that this has happened before with St. Mary's sweeping in the regular season, Gonzaga has ultimately won the WCC, which we like revenge. We add that in as well. And we know that they have a great crowd. It'll be here in Vegas. Yes. And you brought up St. John's. They sweep UConn
Johnny's positioning themselves right atop the Big East. And again, something that I've pointed out before, and just to reiterate it, remember this, that in college basketball, even with all the realignment, there are still the Power 5 conferences. The Big East in college basketball is a power conference and always has been. So I always said that there were the Power 6, because you always have to include the Big East and the fact that they've really had some. And look, the two-time defending champs, UConn, have come out, and then Rick Pitino, what he's done with St. John's. They beat Connecticut a few weeks back last month in stores, and then they come back and complete the sweep here. So the Johnnies, with their defense and their rebounding, have set themselves apart from the rest of the conference. Although, again, once the conference tournament comes, that's a whole different set of circumstances, and the Johnnies are going to have to continue to play well there. But putting themselves in a good position for not only seeding in the Big East tournament, but also trying to stay close to home in the East region.
I'm glad that you brought that up about the Big East, because I did see something over the weekend, Vinny, and maybe you know this off the top of your head, but I can check it out. Because SEC, we've been talking about them. It's been a while since they've actually won the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Kentucky. Calipari's only victory, and it wasn't with the undefeated team. 2012.
Yeah.
But they had, remember this too, that wasn't the team that was undefeated going into the semifinals when they lost to Wisconsin. I want to say that might have been 2014. John Calipari's only national championship at UK was in 2012, but that's the last time that the SEC did win. However, when you look at the SEC this year, I do agree with a lot of the projections that they'll probably likely have the most bids. I mean, it obviously starts with Auburn. Kentucky, we know all about Kentucky and the fact that they're solid. Mark Pope has done a great job this year. Now they've got to get healthy in the backcourt, especially. I mean, that's where their Achilles heel lies. Just when you look at them, particularly in close games late, that they need that quarterback and that leader to put them in a better position. They've lost some games late, but that's what we had. Chris and I were sitting around about a month ago. Chris Andrews, director here at South Point, and we were so impressed with the SEC. It said, "Listen, we had a lot of fun with the Ohio State and Georgia versus the field prop in college football. What about if we put up the SEC versus the field?" And you know what? We put it up. It's gotten a lot of attention. And when we get Paul Stone on in a little bit, love to get Paul's take on it. Not to say that the SEC is going to win this thing, but outside of Duke and a few other teams that will break down, really you have to. It's been a fun prop. So we put it up. By the way, and the field was $1.60 favorite, plus 40 on the SEC. First bets that came in, they laid it.
Yeah.
I mean, this got as high as $1.75. Well, now we've gotten some buyback, and it's down to $1.45 plus a quarter on the SEC. So a fun prop. We've gotten a good response, both from a PR standpoint. People are out there talking about it, and we've gotten a good response at the counter, which is something that we enjoy.
It's been a lot of fun, and you're right, that conference has been just so good this year. Alabama finally snaps their 2-game losing streak. Yeah. They're looking good again. Florida now number 2 in the SEC. This is one team that might have passed me by. I have a Bama ticket, but now I'm looking at Florida like I kind of wish I would have zoned in on them. Now they are under double digits. I think you might be able to find 9-1 still at some places. But yeah, Auburn, Bama, Tennessee. You can't forget Tennessee. They have some really good wins under their belt, and they've been tested. All of these teams now have been tested.
Well, they get tested on a nightly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, right? Against each other, Alex, for certain. Gators, a tremendous game on the interior. Tennessee, great defense. That's what they rely on. I mean, their offense eludes them on occasion. but a terrific defense. Texas A&M, look at Texas A&M. In spite of the loss last week to Missouri, a great team, one of the best rebounding teams in the country, right? Particularly on the offensive glass. Missouri, we talked about. Mississippi, good, and Mississippi State, out of nowhere, really. You talk about a surprise team, and then you have Vanderbilt, who's an absolute beast at home. Not a fun place to play at all. So, look, this conference is going to be heard from for sure, and positioned up and down the regions when we get to Selection Sunday.
I am curious, Vinny, before we bring our good friend Paul Stone in,
Mm-hmm.
I want to look at your top 10. I do have a few teams outside of the SEC that are in the top 10.
Yeah, I do.
And how we see them actually making a run.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought up Duke, and I actually have them tied right now for first with Auburn.
Yes.
And then next I do have Houston.
Yeah, Houston, who completed their sweep of Iowa State over the weekend as well. So, again, my only concern about Houston would be, sometimes their depth and their go-to. Sometimes they go into some scoring droughts, but they do play great defense, which is certainly something you want to look for too, right? In the NCAA tournament in this time of year, you want to look for teams that are playing terrific defense, rebounding, and making free throws. But I do have Houston third as well. I moved Florida up to fourth. I was a little reluctant prior to the weekend to have them. I had them as number 6. But number 5, I've got Tennessee, which these are all close too, and then Iowa State. Then Michigan State's done a tremendous job. Very kind of out of the limelight, outside of the Big Ten. Not as many folks talking about what Tom Izzo's done with the Spartans this year. I give him a lot of credit. And I've moved St. John's up. They're up there, and Texas Tech. Even though they had a loss last week, but Texas Tech is sneaky good, and I think a very dangerous team. But it's close, Alex. Outside of Duke, Auburn, Houston, and Florida, I mean, you could make a case for another dozen teams to slide in there, and they're probably within 1.5 to 2 points of each other.
Exactly, decimal, right? Really, really tight there. I have all those teams so far. Very similar, and Michigan State at 10 now. You're right. I think this is one of his better teams, Izzo, and we know we love to back him in March anyways, and now he's really got the star power there. Curious where you have Arizona before we take a quick break.
Arizona up and down all year. I'm not as high on Arizona. I was not as high on them coming into the season. I've got Arizona right now, Alex. I've got them like number 16, actually, 15, 16. I've still got, Wisconsin ahead of them. I mentioned Texas A&M. I've got Maryland ahead of them as well, and Missouri.
Love that Maryland team.
So I just a little bit of inconsistency. Although they had that great overtime victory a couple of weeks back over Iowa State. But you know what? I don't know. They this time of year they get to their tournament, and this is when they just seem to peak too early, and I'm not so sure that's not going to happen again.
Vinny, I've got to agree with you, and they really struggled in non-con this year, which is a little scary too, because then they turned it on during their conference play, and I do have them a little bit higher and made some adjustments, but now we're starting to see them falter a little bit here, losing 3 of their last 4. Of course, that big upset by BYU over the weekend.
Yeah.
Are we worried about Purdue at this point?
I would, if you're a Boilermaker backer. I mean, obviously with Edie gone, they've had to reinvent themselves. Well coached team, very gritty team, but I don't think they've got. They're going to have to get even better play. They're relying on the perimeter game, on their guards. I just don't know if they've got enough to carry them this year. The way that last year's team was much better, and I don't think that's a stretch.
It is now losing 4 in a row. Of course, it was a very tough stretch: Michigan, Wisconsin, and then Michigan State. But then to lose to Indiana, who was playing very desperate as well.
Sure.
But that was a bad loss for the Boilermakers that they really needed. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. When we get back, we're going to have professional sports bettor Paul Stone join us here on Sports by the Book.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back, everybody. You're watching Sports by the Book. We are live at the South Point Hotel and Casino right on Las Vegas Boulevard. Up next, we're going to bring in our good friend, professional sports bettor. You can find him on the tweets at Paul Stone Sports. He does a great job in both college football and college basketball, now in the Circa VSiN contest. We're excited to hear all about that. But let's bring Vinny and Paul in. Paul, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us on this Monday.
Hey, doing great, Alex. Always good to be with you and Vinny, and exciting time as we draw close to March for us college basketball fans.
I'm
Love to see Paul, but every time I see him, I think we always have to pay out. So
that's the first thing that comes to mind.
To his credit, but well done. And appreciate you being with us, Paul.
Thank you.
I'm excited. Paul's going to give us some long shots. Well, maybe not so long shots, but a couple of future bets that he likes going into March Madness. And then we're going to talk about the prop bet that we put up here at the South Point. But before we even get into any of that, I do want to ask, you have one play on the extra board today. Let's start there for any of our listeners. But it did move. Paul, you told me yesterday you liked Nicholls State -2. They are now 3.5 against Texas A&M CC. So do you still like that here at 3.5, or did that kind of take you off this play?
Yeah, I did notice, it did open, as we talked about yesterday, at -2 there at some of the books that post overnight lines, but now bet up to 3.5. I still like it. Obviously not quite as much, Alex, as I liked it at -2. But sometimes, first of all, as sports bettors, we've got to glance a little bit further down the sheet, got to look at those added or extra games. And today, our travels take us to the Southland Conference and down to Thibodaux, Louisiana, home of the Nicholls State Colonels. That's an area known as the Cajun Bayou. Vinny, you probably listened to a little CCR back in the day, little John Fogerty.
Love him. One of the great. Willie and the Poor Boys.
Willie and the Poor Boys, man. I mean, this is Thibodaux, Louisiana, where Nicholls State is CCR all the way. But I digress a little bit here. Looking at this game today with Nicholls hosting A&M Corpus Christi, a couple of things I like about it. First of all, A&M Corpus Christi, they're playing shorthanded. They've got 2 guards and a forward who haven't been playing their last few games, so that certainly impacts their overall capabilities. They're coming off of a loss at McNeese State over the weekend. McNeese State and A&M Corpus Christi have kind of been league rivals the last couple of years, so they obviously put a lot of emotion into that. Also, A&M Corpus Christi defeated Nicholls State in the first meeting this season between these clubs, 61-57. There on the Islanders' home floor. In that game, the Islanders shot 31 free throws. I don't think they're going to shoot 31 free throws tonight on the road. Also, Nicholls was 2 of 18 from three-point territory in that game. I think Nicholls is going to be a little bit better from three-point land tonight against A&M Corpus Christi. So I like Nicholls minus the 3.5 over A&M Corpus Christi in the Southland Conference.
Excellent, Paul. Excellent breakdown, Paul. And Alex, and for the viewers and listeners out there, it's important to know that if you're going to make money in betting college basketball, it's not just the big board, the main games, right? You've got to delve into the added games, the extra games, as Paul's done here. Again, I've always said that everybody has the most information, particularly on the Power Fives, right? That we talked about. But when you start breaking that, we've got to book all of these. You don't have to bet them all. You can break into a conference. You can break down a conference like the Southland Conference in this case, as Paul indicated, and just focus on that and just follow it. And that's where you're going to find some nuggets. So well done. And that's an important part for the viewers out there. I mean, look, 365 D1 schools. That's why, too, these numbers are going to move a lot quicker, particularly when you have as good an opinion as Paul's.
That's funny, too. I only have one play today as well, and it's a MEAC game with Morgan State and Norfolk State. So it's tough, but there are some really interesting games on the board. And
sure.
I want to throw one at you, Paul, especially being from Texas. We've got Houston and Texas Tech. Houston is 1.5 on the road, total 131.5. Now, I would love Texas Tech side, but there is some revenge, and Texas Tech did beat Houston already. Has that gone into your handicap? Is there any edge you see in this game?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Alex, because that's certainly part of my handicap here. First of all, Texas Tech, they are tough in Lubbock. They're at United Supermarkets Arena. That's one of the more underrated environments in all of college football, not just the Big 12, talking from a national standpoint. But they face a tall task tonight as they attempt to sweep Houston in the regular season series. As you mentioned, Tech won at Houston 82-81 there in overtime back on February 1st. They were getting 9.5 points in that game. However, looking at Houston over the last 8 seasons, only one team, and this was Memphis back in 2021-22, only one team has swept the regular season series from Houston. So they're very difficult to beat twice in the regular season. Additionally, Texas Tech's second leading scorer, Chance McMillan, averages 15 points a game. He's their best three-point shooter. He was in a walking boot this past Saturday when they defeated West Virginia. Don't really get great injury information in college basketball sometime. They really hadn't said whether he's going to play tonight, but I don't expect McMillan to play. I think Houston gets its revenge. I like Houston minus 1.5 in Lubbock tonight over Texas Tech.
This is a game, Alex, that did open with here at South Point. We did open Houston too, so they did take it, which I think is also kind of, we're talking about the letdown spot sometime. I'm not so sure there's going to be a letdown spot with Houston, particularly because they lost that game in overtime by a point at home. So to Paul's point, by the way, Paul, I meant to ask you, and I'm not so sure if you heard our first segment. Knowing you were listening and getting ready for your spot. So, do you subscribe to that? What I mentioned about the Arkansas game the other day against Missouri, where a lot of times the emotional a desperate team is a dangerous team, particularly after their visitor, particularly when they're home, and then the visitors are coming off a big win in their previous game.
Absolutely, and especially late in the season. I think it's different at different points in the season, not so much early in the year, but we're getting to a point now, I'll be off on my number, but these teams have played probably close to 30 games, and there's going to be some lulls, and they've been playing for a long time. The regular season's dragging on. They can't quite see the conference tournament down the road, and these are kind of points in the schedule where I look for those letdowns. And like you said, Arkansas, they've been playing really well. They had really been close, but hadn't got over the hump and got a big win. And they were due for that win, and they got it Saturday over Missouri.
Paul, I'm curious. We were talking about our power ratings as well. Where do you have Houston right now? Do you have that available? I'm sorry.
I don't have it right at my fingertips, but Houston, I heard you guys talking about it, and Houston's a team that I'm really, really high on. I mean, man, they just play suffocating defense. You do have a little concern in a 6-game, you got to win 6 games, obviously, to win the NCAA tournament, and you worry about those offensive lapses. So it's not like they're a great scoring team, but they play so hard. They're just so wiry and cagey and tough to play. I would probably have them just off the top of my head. I think I'd have number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I like Auburn and Duke about the same. In a healthy Florida, I've got Florida just a hair behind those two.
Yeah.
A healthy Florida is as good as anybody in the country. And then at 4, it would be, I think Houston would be next in line in my ratings.
Yep, that's close to what we were talking about,
yeah.
Alex, for sure. Yeah, I do have them at 3, but you know what? They're close to. I mean, it is Auburn and Duke, probably at least 3, maybe 3 to 4, depending on the matchup over the next group. But Houston is right up there with Florida for sure. I agree with Paul.
Florida Gators at sitting 3 in your power ratings, and we can just jump right into it. That is one of the future bets that you like to win it all, and I think you 9-1. Can we still get that, Paul, or is that where you got them?
I got them at 12-1, Alex, about a month ago, and they're still available at plus 900 at a couple of shops. Pretty much universally, they're only plus 700. But if you do have multiple accounts and places to shop, I think you can find that plus 900. And again, I just really like this Florida team. They have had some players out at different points during the season. They've been fully healthy very few games over the last month. But this is a team that won at Auburn. If we remember, 90-81 back on February 8th, getting 11 points. And again, if they're fully healthy, I think they're just a notch, just a hair behind Auburn. My short shot to win it all would be Florida. And again, plus 900 still available out there on the market.
Well, let's stick with the SEC, Paul, because we did put up a prop last month about we had a lot of fun during the regular season with Ohio State and Georgia versus the field in football. So Chrissy and I put up the SEC versus the field, and we made the field $1.60 plus 40 on the SEC, and the initial money came in and significant. It was up to 175. They laid the 60 and 60. They laid everything up to $1.75 before we got buyback, and then it's come back down. So now we're sitting at the field's still favored at $1.45 plus the SEC 1.25 plus 1.25. Any thoughts from you on that particular prop?
Well, first of all, I mean, kudos to you and Chris and the gang there at South Point. Y'all always seem to come up with these creative props. They serve as good talking points and stimulate interest, betting and otherwise. So kudos to you guys. You know, I'm all about the SEC. I think it's hands down, and this isn't any great revelation on my part. I think it's hands down the best league in America. I think there's 5 teams in that league that have a chance to make the Final Four. But with that said, you know, it's difficult when I look at this prop for me not to look long and hard at the field. You know, you're getting a lot of teams, and that's kind of what it's about here. At minus 145, though, Vinny, I feel it's really properly priced. I don't really think I'll get involved. I was out at your place a few weeks ago and, looked it over and thought about it. But again, it's really neat that you guys do this, and I hope you get some action both ways on it.
Oh, it's been. Go ahead. You want to hit it?
No, I was just going to say, when it got to that
action.
plus 155, I thought about it as well, taking that plus price with that SEC, but it wasn't there for very long.
No, it wasn't. When we got it to plus 55, that's when it started to get interest and come back down. So for us, we've enjoyed it. We've gotten a lot of fun, and I love Paul's take on it as well as yours, Alex.
Well, with him, I think we all are with how good the SEC is, but we're kind of trying to go down the board, right, to find some value. And 12-1 on Florida is a great number that Paul had. And you're also looking at potentially one of the Big Ten teams, and we were just talking about Tom Izzo and his Michigan State team, and you like the Spartans at some value here.
Yeah, I tell you, the calendar's about to turn to March, and we're all familiar with that Tom Izzo magic. Once the madness begins, the Spartans, they've started to ramp it up recently, no question about it, especially in their last 3 games, during which they've recorded victories at both Illinois and Michigan, with a victory at home over Purdue sandwiched in between. I was looking at the South Point's odds this morning. As of this morning, there are 15 teams listed at the South Point with shorter odds than Michigan State. In my humble opinion, that's too many. I like this price. A lot of it's about price when you're looking at these futures. Obviously, I see a little value with Sparty at 40-1. So I like Michigan State 40-1 to win the national title.
Well, let's see what happens when we get off the air. No, it's up there. It's not. Yeah. And you know what? One thing I always say to people too, those are not Christmas lights. They're not up there for show. If you like it, then come to the counter. But I agree with Paul. I mean, they're playing great. Izzo's and this is what's interesting about this Michigan State team. A lot of time for many years, they were always talked about, right? And they got a lot of. They're not getting it. And recently, it's been all about Wisconsin. Until what happened to them in their last game. So I think, to me, I've got Michigan State, the top-rated team in the Big Ten.
Well, and that was a great breakdown, looking at that there's 15 teams with shorter odds, and we just talked about them being in our top 10. Yep. So that right there tells you that should be some good value. One more, we're going down the board, which I actually have a little bit on this one as well, but West Coast Conference, who do you like in this one?
I'll tell you, Alex, is St. Mary's going to win the national championship? I don't think so. But what we're talking about here is, the possibility, in my opinion, of having an opportunity to utilize this ticket to our advantage. It's not out of the realm of possibility, as the English would say. It's not rubbish, to think that the Gales could win 3 games in the tournament, get to the Elite Eight. And if you get to the Elite Eight with this St. Mary's ticket at 125-1,
yes,
you've got a number of hedging possibilities. When we buy futures tickets, especially, at least myself, when we buy future tickets, especially on long shots, it's not so much that we think they're going to win. It's that we think we have value and we expect that we might, or we hope that we might have some hedging possibilities when it gets down to the nitty gritty. You look at this St. Mary's team, they're 15-1 in the West Coast Conference. They're actually 3 games clear of every team in the conference, including Gonzaga. They obviously beat the Zags for the second time this year, beat them most recently on Saturday there in Spokane on the Zags home court. I don't think anybody is going to be lining up to play the Gales come March. I like this long shot. St. Mary's 125-1.
Good defense, shoot free throws, make free throws, good fundamentals, motion on offense. And to Paul's point, if you can get 3 victories in there, you're positioned nicely to guarantee yourself some kind of profit, particularly when they get to that 4th game. So excellent breakdown on looking at what you're looking for when you're looking at futures, especially when you get you get into above 100-1 on a ticket.
It's funny too, and I don't know if I'm alone on an island thinking this way, but I kind of like that Gonzaga is going to be highly motivated to win the WCC this year, and then that'll make St. Mary's motivated in the big dance. Last year, I had a great ticket on Iowa State, and when they ended up winning the conference tournament, I was like, oh, that one's in trouble, right? They kind of get maybe a little bit of a big head going into the big dance, so need to always keep them motivated and honest. So I like it. I like St. Mary's a lot. I'm leaning towards Gonzaga to win here in Vegas. But Paul, we really appreciate the time.
Paul, I just have a question for Paul because I know Paul is always in look ahead mode, and seriously, bettors like Paul have taught us more about, from our side of the counter, getting in look ahead mode. So just to really come off script, if I could, Paul, if you have an extra couple of minutes. I know you do a great job with college basketball as well. And I know it's never too early to start working on college football. So is something like stability in this day and age of the NIL and the transfer portal and everything? There are several teams that are going to have some stability from a head coaching standpoint, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and quarterback returning. Is that something again, a team that went to the playoff, SMU, has got everybody intact, because we're constantly trying to review who's left and how, what kind of, how the transfer portal and coaching hires and firings have impacted teams. Is it too early for Paul Stone to start looking at that?
No, I tell you, it's more difficult than ever, Vinny, I think people who handicap college football or college sports in general realize. I mean, I heard a coach, college football coach, say recently, and you guys have probably heard the same comment or something similar. I no longer, this coach said this from his perspective, I no longer am building a program. I'm trying to just fill the team from year to year. And it used to be, when you're handicapping in the off season, a person as myself, you didn't have to look too much at recruiting that year's class because so few true freshmen are going to play. There weren't that many transfers. So you were just looking at who's coming back, who are going to be the reserves who are going to move into starting roles and that type of stuff. And now you not only have the portal window, you have multiple portal windows.
Right.
We had one that was over in mid-January where there was tons of activity. We're about to start spring football practice. And then after spring football practice concludes for everyone, then you're going to have tons of people jump ship in the May portal window. So it's just a never-ending cycle of updating information. The work has never been more voluminous. It's never been more challenging. And, I've always said, the more clutter, the more chaos, the more confusion, the better I like it. The more work that you have to do, the better I like it. You guys have to concentrate on every sport. I just concentrate on 2 or 3 sports, but it has gotten really to be hard work. And, I've always said it's a labor of love. And sometimes these days it gets to just kind of be labor.
That's labor. Exactly. Nonstop. Well, Paul, always appreciate your perspectives. Greatly respect your opinions as well. So best to you as we get ready for March Madness, my friend.
Great question, Vinny. Great answer, Paul, too. I did want to ask one more, too, before we let you go. Do you find any value betting on the draft props?
Alex, we all kind of do our own things. We're all experiments of one, as I like to say. And I've never been a draft better. I made a bet how many ever years ago it was. And I think I had the right position. It just wasn't how he was drafted. I bet that Tim Tebow wouldn't be drafted in the first round. So that was a stinker. And I'm kind of retired from draft betting. I do tell a couple of friends on a few draft bets, but I'm not a heavy draft better by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Were you going to say something else?
I was just going to say, hey, have me on anytime. You guys have my phone number. Love being on with you. And I'll be out there in the next few weeks and hope to say hello. And good luck to you folks.
Conference tournaments are coming up here, and we'll have futures going into that. Is that something you like to really dive into as well?
I'm more of a game-by-game person, but I certainly handicap the games quite extensively and kind of ramp it up. Obviously, this time of the year as the stakes become higher, but I'm not too much, probably as heavily involved in the conference futures as some people are, but certainly love this time of year and get heavily involved in the game-by-game bets.
Can definitely make some money there.
Game
by game. We'll finally let you go after the third time, Paul Stone. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure and follow him, Paul Stone Sports. Hey, and we're, of course, rooting for you in this VSiN and Circa contest.
Best to you, buddy.
Hey, thank you. Hopefully I can keep going and hang in there.
Paul Stone, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. We do have some questions in the chat for us, Vinny. So when we get back, we will get to those. Scott C. is asking us to look at the Stetson game, which we can definitely look at that one. JR also had some interest in the Florida A&M game that is happening today as well. So we'll talk about those two. I have one play I would like to give out, and we've got 2 hockey games on the board because NHL and NBA are back after their all-star breaks, or Four Nation for the NHL. So don't go anywhere. We got a lot to get to here still on Sports by the Book.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south of the border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Here we go. We are back. Sports by the Book, live from the South Point studio. I'm Alex White, alongside Vinny by the Book today. Thank you for joining us in the chat. If you are new, please hit that subscribe button and you can jump in within 5 minutes. We love to answer any questions, have you guys active in the chat. We did have a trivia on the ticker, which I forgot to remind everybody, but hopefully you caught it. First one to answer correctly we'll get a shout out, of course, and we are keeping tally. So please be involved, jump in. I know JR has won a few of those, and I appreciate you too, JR, giving us our college basketball trends in the comments as well. So, Vinny, I teased that we had some games we were going to look at here, and we're going to Bellarmine and Stetson. You opened Stetson, 1-point favorite?
Yep, they're still 1-point favorites. A move to the under in the game from 152.5 to 151. That's not half-point increments either, especially with these extra games, the added games, Alex. A lot quicker line movement, especially with on the total. So typically the total, that's one play or 1.5 plays, if you will, to go to that. Because typically too, again, as I mentioned with in the segment with Paul, right? If you're going to make money, you have to get outside of the Power 5 conferences, and this is an example of that. So follow some of the smaller conferences, the breakdown. Go onto the team websites, go into the beat writers' coverage of them, and you can follow injuries, follow revenge spots as well. So there's a lot of things to do, and we've got to do it, but we've got to do it much quicker, particularly when we're putting up numbers, and especially when you're putting them up early or even overnights. So, but that's the move there so far. In the Bellarmine Stetson game to the under. And
in that conference, just 2 games left. Neither team really very good. Bellarmine at the bottom of that conference. Stetson 5-11 though in that conference. We do have
trying to move up. Yeah. Go ahead. That's important.
Bellarmine did lose at home to Stetson earlier this year. They kind of have revenge against everyone, but they played him competitive. 81-76 was that game, and now they've won 2 in a row. So. Desperate team. Those conferences, don't forget, are going to start earlier too. So everybody, again, thinks about the Power 5 conference tournaments and things. But remember, March is really full of conference tournaments too. So these smaller conferences are going to get their conference tournaments underway while the Power 5 schools are finishing their regular seasons and then head into their conference tournaments. I love how that works out too. And I love the game by game for these conferences, and then I also like trying to find a little a flyer and getting some good value on a team who you think can really make a run in their conference tournament. So we'll be starting those very soon, Vinny, while the SEC, Big 10, Big 12 will kind of wrap up their regular season. So I don't know if we really answered much. I mean, I guess I would lean to taking the point there, and with Bellarmine with the revenge and desperate team. Let's look at the other one here. This is 306-531 on your card there. Florida A&M and Alabama A&M. Where do you have that number, or where did you open, Vinny?
Open at pick and 148, Alex. Again, this is all these games are in the afternoon today, so 4 and 5 o'clock Pacific. 5:30 is the last one. Miss Valley State and Prairie View A&M.
And currently, right now, Florida A&M is the favorite, 1-point favorite. I do want to check for.
I think they'll probably get the initial. It's not surprising that they got the initial. Wait, no. They bet Florida A&M. They bet the road team here. I thought that. I think there'll be some money for the home team here as we get through the day.
I do. I think JR had some. Yes, he does. So Florida A&M, 12 covers in a row, and very good against the spread all year long, 17-5. So that might be part of it too when we're talking about these smaller conferences. Really looking for teams.
Good job, yeah.
That play tough and can cover that spread. They're also 11-4 against the spread on the road. So that is not unfamiliar and pretty comfortable on the road. That's another thing you want to look at too. You know what else you want to look at with some of these smaller schools? Look at their early schedule before conference play started. Yeah.
To see who they played. A lot of times these smaller schools will go and play Power 5 schools. Texas Southern is an example of that. Northeastern, before they get typically for a long time before they got into conference play, they would travel the country and play anybody. In fact, Texas Southern went up to Oregon a few years ago and won at Oregon a few years back, which was a shocker. Because for a long time, Power 5 schools were just looking to kind of fill, get a feel for where they were. And these schools would come in and it would be, kind of a test for them early on. Well, a lot of times those schools benefited from that kind of competition. And, of course, now you've got these players looking to showcase themselves to the bigger schools and the bigger conferences with the NIL element in place, right? So, but those are things that you want to look at, and I'm glad that we've got folks. Paul talked about it, and the folks in the chat looking at the added games. Which if you're going to make money, that's what you have to look at.
I've never really thought about that, Vinny, but you're right. Those players are going to be highly motivated going into one of these Power 5, Power 4 conferences to play against a team like that. Really, just to show what they have. One play for me on the board today, and that is Morgan State, Norfolk State over 156.5. I believe that is the best number here right behind us at the South Point. But I like this over. The trends lead to that. Both of them play at a pretty high pace. On the year, we've got 15-7 to the over for Morgan State. They've also got an over trend on the road, 9-3. Norfolk State 6-2 to the over. I also like the fact that Norfolk State is 2 games up leading in that conference. So this is a meaningless game for them. They're going to play less defense, and coach might just let them play their best offense here. So I really like that over 156.5. First game did not quite get there, 78-74, but it was still competitive. So I think Morgan State can hang around in this one and give us some points as well. We're going to hit on a little bit of NBA and NHL, and then we're going to let you guys get on with your Mondays. But let's start with NBA and just kind of diving into the Wemby news and what that has meant for the Spurs.
Yeah, we chatted a little bit about it. I was on Frank's show on Friday, and initially, you first look at what he means to the number, right, to the point spread. Let's start with that, right? And I think you look at that, Alex, and say, well, I think you start at 2 and go north of there, depending on the opponent. Now, one of the questions I got asked over the weekend was, well, how come it's not what his average is? Well, because the players that are coming in, right, are going to fill that too. So it's not like you could say if a player is averaging X, that's what he means to the point spread, which it's a fair question. But also the fact that, especially in the NBA, where the bench. These are all Americans when they were in college, and these are these players were drafted and they're excellent. So, but again, so you have that element to the Wemby news. But the other thing is had to raise their future prices too. They were on the outside. They were trying to get to a play-in position for the playoffs, right? Obviously, he's a big part of their future. They're much better this year than they were before he got there. And again, they're building, right? So it's a situation. I think they were 3 games out going into the playoff position or a play-in position.
Right.
But now you've got to adjust that, right, and say, you know what, without him, certainly a much taller task. So there's the game by game element, but there's also the future element that has to be taken into consideration. And we just hope he recovers, obviously, and because I think he's going to be a big part of the not only the Spurs' future, but the NBA as we move forward.
Great point, Vinny. And an example that could help people too is looking at the Luka and AD trade.
Yeah.
I was asking my dad how much they were worth to the line, and he's like, "Don't forget it's who to their backup, really, right? Because AD, he still had worth quite a bit for the Lakers because of who his backup was in that drop off from when they came in.
And they had to play so many games without him too, so you had a little bit something to go on, right? Let's face it,
exactly.
It was either him or LeBron or both, questionable, which. There's a lot of that going on in the NBA, as we know.
Well, big win for the Lakers over the weekend. They did beat the Denver Nuggets, and now they are playing some good basketball, sitting right now at 4th in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City, though, looking very good. Big win for them yesterday over Minnesota. So should be interesting as we get closer to playoffs, and we'll be able to break that down more, looking at matchups for playoffs and everything going into that. 2 games on the ice. It's been a fun weekend. A lot of overs on Saturday. I was not here this weekend, but I was really looking at some of the teams that had a lot of players that were playing in the Four Nations.
Yes, particularly.
The Florida Panthers were okay to stay away from. The Oilers.
How about the Knights? Although they because the Knights had the second most play, although 2 of them couldn't play. William Karlsson was injured, and Alex Pietrangelo elected to get some rest. And the Knights did prevail, and they got the empty net goal late to cover the puck line. But, Alex, that was something worth watching going into Saturday, particularly the players, the teams that were impacted by the players that played in the USA-Canada game, which was a tremendous hockey game. And how they came back. Now the Oilers, they've lost 2 in a row because they got beat yesterday at Philadelphia. So you have to watch again how these teams respond. Watch now scheduling as well. So you mentioned the Knights who are at Los Angeles tonight, and this is the only road game that the Knights have, I think, over their next 6 games. Or 5 games. Wow. So a lot of home cooking coming up for the Golden Knights. Of course, they're going to have to do this without their best defender in Shea Theodore, who is, I think it's a broken wrist. He got hurt in the Four Nations, in the Four Nations Cup. So, and again, the Kings are trying to position themselves better. It's they're looking up at the Knights and the Oilers in the Pacific. So. And then the other game you mentioned, the Winnipeg Jets, who have the best record, the most points in the NHL right now, playing terrific hockey. One of the bigger prices you're going to $450, and again, that's predicated on the fact that they're playing the Sharks up to $480 now, and that's not just people laying the $450 and $460. That's this. The Jets are in every parlay tonight, and especially on the puck line.
I have it right here on the board.
Look at the puck line. Minus a goal and a half and minus $1.70. So minus there on the puck line. It speaks to the strength of the Jets.
You know what, Vinny? Thank you. I think there's a better play out there. I just got to do some shopping around, and that is San Jose under their team total because I really wanted to back Hellebuck. He is playing in this one. It was crazy. On Saturday, we had the Blues and the Jets playing each other. Of course, they both had their backup goalies, but I would have loved to see Binnington and Hellebuck out there coming off of that USA and Canada championship.
By the way, Alex, speaking of those two goalies, I mean, obviously Hellebuck's not going anywhere, but you wonder, with the trade deadline approaching, keep an eye on certain players. Keep an eye on teams. I think, I'm not saying that I have any knowledge of this by any means, but I think if you're the St. Louis Blues, and again on the outside looking in, and even if they do get into a wild card position, I don't see them advancing so far. This is not the same Blues team that came out of nowhere a few years back and won the Stanley Cup. But they could get quite a bit, I think, for Binnington, especially coming off of his performance in the Four Nations Cup. But the trade deadline,
that's a fantastic point.
Is approaching.
I didn't even think about that. There are some really good teams out there that are just kind of lacking in the goalie position.
Yeah.
So there could definitely be some teams.
And we know that the team that resides here in Las Vegas is always active on the around the trade deadline, although Kelly McCrimmon has said that they're very happy with their roster now. So that to me is, okay, that means you're going to be active. Right? It's, right. I'd be shocked if the Golden Knights did not follow form and looked at some players out there.
One last thing, so I do like San Jose team total under, or I do like the puck line. I do not like that minus 170, but I do think Hellebuck will be dialed in and focused today, and the Jets in general, as they are one of the best teams going up against one of the worst teams. You brought up the Oilers, who did lose 2 in a row. So first it was the Flyers, then yesterday was Washington.
Oh, I'm sorry, the other way. Yeah, that's right. And Ovechkin had a hat trick.
Did. And that is what I wanted to bring up. I believe 13 away, trying to chase Gretzky's record there for most goals.
And what a great story the Capitals are. Led by, I have to tell you, Thompson, the former Knights goaltender, who's having a terrific. They're all having a great year. They're playing great defense, and of course, they can score as you mentioned. Yeah, I got the games reversed, but they're atop their division, and
yes, they are.
I'll tell you what, looking very dangerous.
And really, Carolina's not even close. Washington right now 84 points, and then the Canes and New Jersey both have 70. But I'm going to wait on this one. I have not bet it yet, but I really like VGK and the Kings under. And the first 2 times these two played, we had a lot of goals. 6-1 when the Knights won at home, and then the Kings got their revenge, won at home 6-3. So I'm expecting more of a playoff-style game. I trust both goalies. I'm surprised those first 2 games were so high-scoring, to be honest. Aiden Hill and Darcy Kemper both going tonight. So I'm going to wait, though, because right now here at the South Point, under is 105. I think we might get some over money if people are looking at the last time they played, expecting a higher-scoring game. So maybe I can get just even money going under that 5.5, or maybe even get it under a 6.
Yeah, you might even see. I would shop that, Alex. I mean, if it gets to 6, it'll be the under. You'll have to lay some juice, but you'll get that extra half goal.
We did see the Knights the other night, lower scoring game there, 3-1, I believe the final was.
Yep, against Vancouver.
So, thank you, everybody. Vinny, thank you so much.
Good to be with you, Alex.
A lot of fun
well done.
Co-hosting the entire show with you. I guess I should just do a whiteboard to keep it consistent. So, you want to take a 30-second break, Ryan? All right, he is ready for us now. So here we go with my whiteboard plays of the day, and I got to fix that now. So Morgan State and Norfolk, we are going over. I'm sorry, I had to change out that puck line there. San Jose team total, San Jose Sharks, that is, we're going under. And then VGK and LA under that 5.5, or wait like I am and try and get under 6, or even some plus money with that under. For Vinny, Ryan, Vince, Jerry, and Drew Dog, thank you all so much. And everybody else working from home to help us out here. This has been Sports by the Book. I will be back tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. with Jeff Parles. And remember, in 1 hour, go to Punchlines FN. We've got another great show for you coming up. Vinny, thank you again. For the crew, I'm Alex White. I'll see you again very shortly.